Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to share my views with this August gathering. The topic is as flashed on the screen: India-Vietnam Maritime Security Cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. India and Vietnam share a civilizational connect dating back to over 2 millennia, right from the Champa Kingdom to our contemporary diplomatic ties, which were established in 1972. Since then, the relationship has deepened significantly, marked by the strategic partnership signed in 2007, which was elevated to a comprehensive strategic partnership in 2016. Our engagement is not merely bilateral, it is also embedded in ASEAN-led multilateral frameworks such as the East Asia Summit, the ADMM Plus, and the Mekong-Ganga Cooperation, to name a few. Like India, Vietnam has embraced the Indo-Pacific construct. Just for the recollection, some countries have still not accepted this construct as Indo-Pacific. They still prefer to use the word Asia-Pacific. So today, at least, India and Vietnam are on the same page. So it's aligning itself with ASEAN's vision for a free, open, inclusive, and rules-based region. In today's talk, I posit that India and Vietnam would benefit most by attaching their bilateral pillar of relationship with the ASEAN and the Indo-Pacific centered, inclusive, multilateral mechanism, while gradually engaging the US, Japan, and other potential partners in suitable frameworks. Let me begin by understanding India's maritime security concerns, by Vietnam's maritime security concerns. Post the Cold War and the collapse of the Soviet Union, Vietnam reoriented its foreign and security policies, turning its gaze seawards. Subsequently, in 1994, with the UNCLOS 3 coming into force, Vietnam secured an exclusive economic zone of over 1.2 lakh square nautical miles, rich in hydrocarbons and marine resources. However, China's unilateral declaration of the 9-dash line continues to undermine Vietnam's sovereignty. We had Admiral Bapna covering this in detail, so I'm sure you're able to understand what I'm trying to get at. As can be seen from the slide, the 9-dash line cuts deep into Vietnam's EEZ, restricting its ability to exploit oil, gas, and fisheries. Vietnam estimates reserves of over 4.4 billion barrels of oil and nearly 25 trillion cubic feet of natural gas within this zone. Add to that the frequent ongoing confrontations with the Chinese maritime forces over the sovereignty of the disputed Paracel and Spratly group of islands, and the fishing waters surrounding them further adds to the regional tension. The increasing footprint of the PLA Navy in the Vietnamese waters are also some of the genuine and growing concerns. Let me explain. As you can see, this is Vietnam, this is China. Earlier, the Chinese forces would generally remain within the blue lines, as you can see. There are quite a bit coastal operations. Now the PLA naval forces have expanded their footprints, and this is where they are now. This is a cause of concern for Vietnam. Moreover, the militarization of these islands, the islands which we talked about, primarily the Paracels and the Spratlys, with runways, radars, and missile systems, has transformed these disputes into hard power challenges, threatening regional peace and the freedom of navigation through critical sea lines of communication. Just for the sake of, again, for the audience, for understanding, this is the 9-dash line. This is the Paracel group of islands, the Spratly group of islands, Vietnam. On these islands, with runways, with missiles, this blue lines you see, blue circle, is the surface and to air missiles. This is the anti-shipping missiles, and this green circle is the fighter jets, their range of operation. Similarly, here in the Spratlys, so you can see these waters are pretty contested, and the psychological impact it will have on the ships passing through this, the slocks that go through. Just to give you how it looks like, This is the woody island in the Parishes. This runway has been extended. You can see by reclaiming this sea there, and the bombers can operate from here. You also have various missiles on this island. And if you see the way it appears in perspective, the woody island, which we just saw, this is Vietnam. This is right on the face of Vietnam. And similarly, you have the other Spratly Islands out here. So you can understand what is the situation there in the South China Sea, especially with respect to Vietnam's concerns. And these are the slocks that pass through this. You can see the islands. There are ranges of the various missiles and the slocks that go through, which includes the Indian shipping or our trade that goes to this area. India's concerns. Turning to India, while we do not have any maritime disputes with China, our relationship remains complex and sensitive. From the 1962 war, the 2017 Doklam standoff to the violent face-off in Galwan in 2020, the land boundary remains unresolved. On the maritime front, China's growing presence in the Indian Ocean through its so-called string of pearls, the Belt and Road Initiative, and the nexus with Pakistan, especially the CPEC, raise serious security concerns for India. Over 90 to 95% of our trade by volume and 70% by value is seaborne. The safety of these sea lanes is non-negotiable. India's maritime doctrines, with our vision of being a preferred security partner in the Indian Ocean region, emphasize a commitment to a stable Indo-Pacific. That given the vastness of this region, partnerships are essential, and Vietnam is a natural and trusted partner. India-Vietnam Maritime Defense Cooperation. The foundation for defense cooperation was laid in 2003 with the first India-Vietnam Security Dialogue. Since then, India has trained Vietnamese naval personnel, supported naval ship repair capabilities, and shared maritime expertise. Notably, during Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh's visit to Vietnam in 2022, the two sides signed a joint vision statement on defense cooperation till 2030. Subsequently, India handed over 12 high-speed guard boats to Vietnam. Further, in 2023, Ines Kirpan, a fully operational Kukri-class missile corvette, was gifted to Vietnam's People's Navy. This is unprecedented and a powerful symbol of trust. Operational engagements. Bilateral naval exercises began in 2018 at Da Nang and have continued regularly. Indian ships have made port calls at Cam Ranh Bay, Ho Chi Minh City, and Da Nang, engaging in PASEX and humanitarian and disaster relief operations. List of Indian naval ships and Coast Guard ships to Vietnam in the recent past is as flashed on the screen. As you can see, in the last 4 years, we have had multiple ships, and that is naval and Coast Guard ships, visiting different ports of Vietnam. Vietnamese officers regularly train at Indian naval institutions, and we cooperate in hydrography, white shipping information, and Coast Guard operations. Vietnam also actively participates in our multilateral exercises like Milan and ADMM Plus activities. Strategic convergence and Indo-Pacific outlook. India and Vietnam are increasingly aligned in their views on the Indo-Pacific. Both advocate for a free, open, rule-based order rooted in the UNCLOS and oppose unilateral actions that threaten peace. Vietnam serves as a bridge for India's Act East and Indo-Pacific strategies. Its participation in Quad Plus dialogues during the year 2020 to discuss global response to COVID-19 was significant, and its leadership in ASEAN gives added strategic weight to our partnership. Energy cooperation and Chinese objections. ONGC Videsh Limited, also known as OVL, has been active in Vietnam since 1988, exploring offshore blocks within Vietnamese EEZ. This is the orange color there. You can see is India's OVL block. Despite repeated objections from China, both countries have maintained this cooperation, reaffirming this purely commercial nature and legal standing under international law. Multilateral engagements and ASEAN centrality. India and Vietnam have found common grounds in the ASEAN-led forums like ADMM+, where we co-chair the experts working group on humanitarian mine action. Our cooperation includes areas like maritime law enforcement, scientific research, and counterterrorism, among other initiatives. India's Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative, or the IPOI, and ASEAN's Indo-Pacific Outlook share common objectives, and this synergy should be harnessed further. Challenges and realism. Having examined the areas of cooperation, it would be prudent to also acknowledge the associated nuances due to regional dynamics. Vietnam's economic dependence on China remains a constraint. With trade touching $133 billion and China being Vietnam's largest trading partner, Hanoi must strike a careful balance between strategic deterrence and economic pragmatism. Vietnam's three no's policy, which is no military alliances, no foreign bases, and no siding with one power against another, remains a central tenet of its defense policy. This means that while defense and maritime cooperation with India will grow, it will likely remain calibrated and within Vietnam's policy framework. And if I would conclude, India-Vietnam Maritime Security Cooperation is a key pillar of our comprehensive strategic partnership. But it is time to look beyond bilateralism towards trilateral and multilateral frameworks where Vietnam can play a meaningful role. The Mutual Logistics Support Agreement signed in 2022 during Raksha Mantri's visit to Vietnam, almost similar to those that India has with Australia, France, and the US, could extend our operational reach in the Indo-Pacific. Even within limitations, such agreements hold strategic promise. Vietnam, with its geographic centrality, political independence, and mature diplomacy, is a natural leader in the Southeast Asia. As India seeks greater influence in the Indo-Pacific, our partnerships with Vietnam will be one of the defining vectors of stability and shared prosperity. Thank you.